Hello everyone, I am Overkill, and today's video is on Zhatan the Black, commander of the Tower of Zar. This video will be broken into two parts. The first part will focus on his lore, and the second on how I think I could translate him into Total Warhammer. The lore I go over will come from White Dwarf Presents Chaos Dwarfs, which was a compilation of White Dwarf articles centered on the Chaos Dwarfs, and served as their army book for the 4th and 5th editions. Alright, I shall begin. Under the Dark Tower of Zar Nagrand, a million evil souls labor to the glory of Heshut, Father of Darkness. From 1,000 burning forges comes weapons of burnished iron and corselets of ruddy bronze. It is the greatest city in the world, and it is ruled by the most black-hearted lords of all, the Chaos Dwarf sorcerers. Acts of the most cruel and heartless nature are everyday occurrences in the lands of Zarduk. Thousands of slaves endure unimaginable agonies in the pits of Zar, mining out the poisonous wealth amidst choking fumes and impenetrable darkness. In the workshops of Zar Nagrand, untold slaves are worked to death in their chains so that their masters can enjoy a lifetime of ease. The hobgoblin overseers in the Vale of Woe beat their pitiful charges so that their flesh hangs from their backs like bloodied rags. Even amongst such wanton cruelty, there is one whose deeds of brutality are remarkable, Zhatan the Black, commander of the Tower of Zar. Zhatan serves the Chaos Dwarf sorcerer Gorth the Cruel, most potent of all living Chaos Dwarf sorcerers. It is said that when Gorth presides over the sacrifices of Heshut, the only sound louder than the screams of his victims is the gloating laughter of Zhatan, his general. Zhatan is kept busy by his master's insatiable demand for fresh slaves. The Chaos Dwarf has led many successful slaving expeditions to the west, crushing every orc army that has dared to stand up to him. All the goblin tribes between the plains of Zarduk and Mount Grimfang have bowed before his armies, sending thousands of their kind in tribute to the lords of Zar Nagrand. The workshops and mines of Gorth can scarce keep pace with Zhatan's demand for weaponry. Every expedition he undertakes brings further slaves whose labors fuel fresh conquests. So that is it for his lore. Moving on, I'm going to talk about his stats. My guesses here are based on his profile from White Dwarf. I will go in the order the stats would appear on a unit card in Total Warhammer multiplayer, with the unit size set to large. Beginning with the cost, I think he would be about 1,800 to 2,000 gold. When unmounted, he counted as infantry, so he would be small, with a model about the size of Ungrim. His health should be about 4,500 to 5,000, with armor around 20. He should have high leadership of 90 to 100, and a speed around 30. Zhatan was an excellent fighter, so he should have high melee attack and melee defense of 60 to 70. I assume that the Warhammer he used counted as a great weapon, so I would give him a weapon strength of 450 to 500 and have it be armor piercing. Lastly, I would give him a charge bonus of 30 to 40. So that is it for his stats. As you can see, he is an excellent melee lord. Moving on, I'm going to talk about his special rules. None of these rules had explicit names in 4th edition, so I used their later edition names or just made some up. His basic special rules were Strong, Resolute, and Contempt. His first basic special rule was Strong. Chaos Dwarfs are sturdy creatures who can bear the weight of armor more easily than fragile humans and other races. This rule made it so that armor did not reduce a character's movement speed. In Total Warhammer, there is already a generic trait for lords and heroes called Strong. It gives a boost to armor, melee attack, and weapon strength. Perhaps Zhatan could have the option of choosing this as a skill in campaign. His second basic special rule was Resolute. Chaos Dwarfs fight with grim malice and determination, and are reluctant to abandon their positions on the battlefield. This rule made it so that Chaos Dwarfs pursued and fled less than other races. Like Strong, Resolute is already in the game as a generic skill a Dwarf Lord can take in campaign. It increases charge bonus. However, on tabletop, Resolute was different for Dwarfs and Chaos Dwarfs. I think the Chaos Dwarf version would instead buff leadership. His last basic special rule was Contempt. Chaos Dwarfs despise all other forms of life, and see them as nothing more than contemptible fodder to be exploited and disposed of as needed. They expect their lessers to show cowardice and weakness in battle, and be restrained only through fear. This rule made it so that Chaos Dwarfs ignored any fleeing units that were not Chaos Dwarfs or Bull Centaurs. In Total War, this would give greenskin units the expendable rule. His first unique special rule was Boundless Cruelty. Zhatan's cruelty knows no bounds. he is the most pitiless warrior to tread the blackened earth of Zar. This gives Zhatan hatred towards all enemies. In the 4th edition, hatred made it so a character took break tests at max leadership and could reroll failed to hit rolls when fighting a hated enemy. It also made it so that the character had to pursue any hated enemy they broke in combat. If put into Total Warhammer, I imagine that this would be a buff to leadership, weapon strength, melee attack, and or speed. His second special rule was Arsenal of Zhatan. Zhatan is a Lord character, which would normally entitle him to carry up to 3 magic items. However, such is his stature amongst his kind, and such is the power of his master Gorth, that he may carry up to 4 magic items. There are several ways CA could go about implementing this. Option 1 is to give him multiple unique items. Zhatan didn't have any unique items of his own. In the past, when a character didn't have any unique items, CA would make one up, or take a generic item and make it unique. For example, Wulfric, Morgor, and Luther did not have any unique items on tabletop. In the items section later on, I will talk about the possible items he could have. Option 2 is to give him an improved chance to find magic items or steal them after a battle. Lastly, option 3 is to give him a discount when crafting items. Assuming that the Chaos Dwarfs have a crafting mechanic like the Dwarfs and Tomb Kings, he could get a discount on whatever the crafting currency is for Chaos Dwarfs. Now that is it for his official rules, but before I move on to the next section, I want to make some guesses about other possible abilities or mechanics that would be more implied from his lore than his special rules. Starting with diplomacy, I imagine that he would have some special interactions with greenskins. He could have an increased chance to vassalize them, or have some special bonus to vassalizing them, such as passive slave gain from vassals, assuming of course the Chaos Dwarfs have a slavery mechanic. As for negative diplomacy, I imagine he would have conflict with Astrogoth's faction. In the lore, Zhatan's boss Gorth seeks to overtake Astrogoth as the High Priest of Heshut, so it would make sense for Zhatan and Astrogoth to hate each other. As for what units he benefits, I think this would come in 2 parts. The first part is benefits towards standard Chaos Dwarf warriors and crossbowmen. Being as Zhatan is the quintessential general, I think it would make sense if he benefited these core units. The second part would deal with greenskins. Since Zhatan is so famous for conquering greenskins, he should have a recruitment or upkeep cost reduction to any greenskin units in his army. If the Chaos Dwarfs have a slavery mechanic, I believe that Zhatan will get a bonus to the number of slaves captured after a battle, but will have an increased slave death rate. Lastly, I believe that he will get some skill in campaign that allows him to cause fear and or terror. So that wraps it up for special rules. Moving on, I will now talk about his items. His basic items were heavy armor and a warhammer. A note on the warhammer is that it was never explicitly stated whether this hammer was one-handed or two-handed. I assume that it would be a two-handed great weapon, as Zhatan did not carry a shield. As for mounts, Zhatan could ride a Great Taurus or a Lamassu. Now on to unique items. As I said earlier, Zhatan did not have any unique items on tabletop, but since CA will give him 1 or more unique items, I decided to take some lore-friendly guesses at what they could be. His first possible unique item is the Black Hammer of Heshut. This black-hafted hammer bears the horned rune of Heshut, Father of Darkness, and has been carried into battle for centuries by the champions of Zarnagrand. Its burning wrath is terrible, and can sunder the strongest armor and pulverize the bones of ogres as easily as the brittle limbs of goblins. On tabletop, this weapon increased the wielder's strength and instantly killed any flammable targets it wounded. I chose this weapon because it is the only named hammer in the Chaos Dwarf arsenal, and Zhatan is the only character who explicitly uses a hammer. In Total Warhammer, I imagine that it would give increased weapon strength, flaming attacks, and magical attacks. As for additional effects, it could inflict the burnt, flammable, armor sundering, or shield breaker effects. His second possible unique item is the armor of Bazarek the Cruel. Legend has it that Bazarek was an infamous Castilian commander of the Tower of Gorgoth during the wars against the great empire of Nehekara at its height, long before Nagash doomed its people. A general and slave lord without peer, he threatened the dominance of the Chaos Dwarf sorcerers, and he had his armor fashioned in secret to shield him from his rivals. It failed him, however, when his army was cut off by a vast orc horde in the tidal flats over the edge of the Bitter Sea, where he drowned under its weight after being driven into the surf. The armor was later recovered in plunder from the orcs and repaired, and stands as a testament to arrogant warriors and the price of hubris. On the tabletop, the armor granted an excellent armor save and bonus magic resistance. The reason I chose this armor was how close in character Bazrek seems to Zhatan, as well as the fact that it was heavy armor. In Total War, it would give bonus armor, magic resistance, and some additional effect, like physical resist, melee defense, or a ward save. The third possible unique item he could have is the Gauntlets of Bazrek the Cruel. There is no lore for this item, and I chose it for the same reason as the armor. On the tabletop, this enchanted item increased the bearer's strength, but made the wearer hit a friendly unit if they rolled a 1. In Total Warhammer, this would give increased weapon strength and some bonus passive ability. I doubt CA would add the friendly fire part, as they typically don't translate over drawbacks to unique items. The last possible unique item I think he could have would be the Banner of Slavery. This mighty standard carries the emblem of the ziggurat of the Great Temple of Zar, and is richly embellished by the runes of tyranny and destruction. Fire and ash bleed from it, casting a pall of shadow, and those under its influence have no choice but to acknowledge their subjugation to their dark masters, and their inevitable victory. On the tabletop, this gave all nearby hobgoblin units immune to psychology, and the reason I chose this banner was due to Zhatan's reputation as a slaver of greenskins. In Total War, I believe it would work the same way as it does on tabletop. I don't think that this banner would be powerful enough to warrant a quest to get it, so Zhatan should start with it like Grimgor does with his unique banner. Now we have come to the end, so I'll give my final thoughts. I believe that Zhatan will be a starting legendary lord for the Chaos Dwarfs, alongside Astrogoth. He would remain unique from the other Chaos Dwarf lords by having his focus be on the core Chaos Dwarf units and greenskins. I imagine that he would start in the Tower of Gorgoth, with one of his campaign goals being to take Zarnagrand and destroy Astrogoth's faction. Alright, that will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have anything in particular you want to see me speculate on, whether it be characters, units, or anything else, feel free to post it in the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.